My sister stole my 21st birthday, and I learned something in that moment that took me years to put into words. My family didn't forget me that night. They chose not to see me. If you'd met us in public, you would have called us close. The kind of family that posts matching holiday photos and says we're so blessed with straight faces. My mom, Marianne, had perfected that glossy, polite warmth, smiling like a hostess even when she was furious. My dad, Paul, was the quiet type who believed avoiding conflict counted as being a good man. And my sister, Vera was the sun in their sky. I'm Nora. I turned 21 that night, and I remember every detail because betrayal has a way of sharpening your memory into something cruel. The ballroom was inside the Hawthorne Hotel downtown, the kind of place with mirrored walls and gold trim that tries to convince you you're important just by letting you walk through the door. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks, throwing light onto the crowd in expensive, flattering angles. White flowers spilled from tall centerpieces, orchids and roses arranged so perfectly they didn't look real. The dessert table looked like a magazine spread. A three-tier cake stood in the center, tall and pristine, and for the first few seconds I saw it and thought, they actually did it. They actually threw me a real party. I'd been planning this night in my head for months, not because I expected grandeur, but because I kept hoping, like an idiot, that 21 would be the moment where I mattered, that there'd be photos where I wasn't cut off on the side, that someone would toast me and mean it, that my mother would look at me like I was worth celebrating, not just managing. I stood near the entryway while guests arrived, presents in hand, bright faces, perfume and cologne mixing in the air with the scent of the flowers. My dress, navy blue silk, something my mom insisted would photograph beautifully, felt suddenly tight, like it belonged to someone else. Like I was wearing a costume for an event that had nothing to do with me. People streamed past me without stopping. Not one happy birthday, Nora, not one hug. Not even that awkward, oh, there you are. They walked right past me like I was a staff member, straight to the receiving line, straight to my family, straight to Vera. I watched my aunt rush in with her arms wide, and for one foolish second, one humiliating, hopeful second, I thought she was coming to me. There's the birthday girl, Aunt Cynthia said, loud and delighted. My heart actually lifted. Then she flew past me and grabbed Vera in a hug so dramatic it looked choreographed. Vera turned slightly, laughing, her champagne-colored gown catching the light. She looked like the lead in a bridal ad, hair curled and pinned like she was going to be photographed all night from every angle. Her lipstick was the exact shade my mom always said was classy. The dress probably cost more than my laptop. My mom spotted me standing there and her expression tightened. Not concern, not guilt, but irritation, like I'd left a cabinet door open and ruined the aesthetic. Why are you lurking over here? She hissed, stepping close enough that only I could hear. Go help your sister greet people. This is her special night. I blinked like my brain had stalled. Mom, I said quietly, because I didn't want to make a scene in a room full of strangers. It's my birthday. I'm turning 21. She didn't even flinch. She waved a hand as if I'd corrected her grammar. Vera mentioned she never had a real 21st, she said, because your father was unwell that year. When she brought it up a few months ago, we thought combining the parties would make sense. Don't be selfish about this. Selfish. That word hit me like a slap because it wasn't new. It was the word my family used anytime I asked for something that didn't orbit Vera. When I was 12 and wanted my own room. Selfish. When I was 15 and didn't want to go to Vera's rehearsals every weekend. Selfish. When I was 17 and asked my mom to come to my school awards night. Selfish. When I was 19 and tried to talk about my anxiety. Selfish. The rule was simple. If Vera wanted something, it became a family priority. If I wanted something, it became a character flaw. We could have had 2 parties, I whispered. My throat felt tight, like I'd swallowed a stone. My mom's laugh was cold. Do you have any idea how much this venue costs? Be grateful we're celebrating you at all. Most parents wouldn't go through this trouble. And then she disappeared into the crowd as if the conversation had never happened. I stood there while servers walked by with trays of champagne and tiny plates of hors d'oeuvres I couldn't pronounce. The DJ started playing a pop song I recognized instantly because it was Vera's favorite, and suddenly the center of the room opened like a stage. Vera danced with my dad under the chandeliers, and everyone cheered. My dad, who couldn't remember the name of my major most days, held her like she was made of glass, like she was the only thing in the world he didn't want to drop. He smiled at her in a way that made my chest ache because it was so obvious, so unguarded, so proud. No one noticed I wasn't in the spotlight. No one looked for me. My phone buzzed. Maya, my best friend since middle school. Running late. Save me a seat at your table. I stared at the message until my eyes blurred. Then I turned toward the seating chart propped on an easel near the entrance because I needed something concrete to hold on to, something to prove I wasn't crazy. Table 1, Marianne and Paul. Vera, Ivan, Vera's boyfriend. Aunt Cynthia, family friends, Vera's hospital buddies, people Vera laughed with and posted photos with. Table 7, Nora, back corner, near the kitchen doors, between distant cousins I barely knew and my great-aunt who was nearly deaf. My name looked like an afterthought someone remembered at the last second, a label placed where it wouldn't disrupt the main picture. That was when I broke. I walked into the restroom and locked myself into a stall like I was 13 again, hiding from a household that only noticed me when I was in the way. I pressed cold paper towels to my face and stared into the mirror afterward, trying to fix makeup that had started to crack. My reflection looked young and stupid and hopeful in the worst way. How had I convinced myself tonight would be different? When I walked back out, the party was fully underway. Vera was seated at the center table, surrounded by people in sleek dresses and suits who laughed at everything she said. My mom hovered nearby like a proud manager. My dad told a story with his hand on Vera's shoulder. Then the cake came out, a chorus of cheers. Phones lifted to record. The room dimmed slightly so the candles would show, and everyone turned toward the dessert table like it was a ceremony. I watched the cake roll in and felt my stomach drop. In perfect looping script, it read, "Happy 21st birthday, Vera." No and Nora, no shared celebration, no mistake, just her name. I stood there, not moving, not breathing properly, like if I stayed still enough I could disappear and stop feeling it. A waitress approached me with a tray of champagne. "Are you with the birthday party?" she asked brightly. That question almost shattered me. I took a glass I wasn't supposed to have and drank it fast. Bubbles burned my throat. The sting helped, just a little, because pain you choose feels different than pain handed to you. Then Maya arrived. She scanned the room, found me in the shadows, and her face changed instantly. "Nora," she said, grabbing my hands. "What happened? You look wrecked." The story came out of me in broken pieces. My mom's words, the seating chart, the cake, the way everyone kept calling Vera the birthday girl like my existence was a typo. Maya's expression shifted from shock to a kind of rage I'd never seen on her. She turned slowly, taking in the center table, the cake, my parents' proud faces. "Are you kidding me?" she whispered. "This is insane." "It's always like this," I said, and hearing it out loud made it sound worse, like I'd been living inside something poisonous and calling it normal. Maya squeezed my hand. "We're leaving." I flinched. "I can't just leave my birthday party." Maya leaned in, voice low and sharp. "Nora, this is not your party anymore." Before I could argue, she was already guiding me toward the exit. My feet moved like they belonged to someone else. I looked back one last time. My mom laughed at something Aunt Cynthia said. My dad wrapped an arm around Vera and tilted his head toward her like she was the only person in the room. Vera smiled and waved at someone as if she were royalty. None of them noticed me walking out. We made it to the parking lot before my mom caught up. Her heels clicked on the pavement like gunshots. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes bright with fury. Not fear, not worry. Fury. "Where do you think you're going?" she snapped. "You can't just abandon your sister's party." "My sister's party," I repeated, and the words tasted like metal. "It was supposed to be mine." "You're being dramatic," she said instantly, like that sentence was her emergency button. "Get back inside and stop embarrassing this family." Something inside me cracked, not loudly, not with fireworks, more like ice under pressure, a clean fracture. "No," I said. My mother froze. Her eyes widened, genuinely stunned, because I had never disobeyed her like that, not directly, not in a way other people could see. "What did you say?" "I said no," I repeated, louder this time. "I'm leaving, and I'm not coming back." My mom's mouth tightened. "Don't be ridiculous. You're 21. You have no job and no prospects. Where exactly do you think you'll go?" She said it like she'd been waiting to use it, like she'd been storing it. Here's what she didn't know. I'd been accepted into Berkeley with a partial scholarship. I'd done the whole application process alone because my parents were too busy shaping Vera's career to care about mine. The plan had been to commute from home and save money. That plan died in that parking lot. "I'll figure it out," I said. My voice shook, but not enough to back down. I've been figuring things out by myself for years anyway. My mom's expression flickered, anger to something that might have been hurt, if she was capable of being hurt by me. "If you walk away now, don't expect us to bail you out when reality hits. You'll have to survive on your own." I stared at her and felt a strange calm settle in my body, like my nervous system finally gave up on hope and chose clarity instead. I've been surviving on my own my entire entire life, I said. You just never noticed. Then I got in Maya's car before my mother could answer. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a long moment, torn between dragging me back inside and returning to her perfect party. The party won. It always did. Maya drove us to a diner on the edge of town with faded boots and buzzing fluorescent lights. We ordered pancakes at 9 at night, and she let me cry into my coffee like I was grieving someone who had died. My phone exploded with messages. Not one, "Are you okay?" Not one, "Where are you?" Not one, "We're sorry." Just variations of the same theme. Ungrateful, immature, selfish. How could you ruin Vera's night? Vera herself texted, "You made this about you." Typical. Maya's family took me in the way my own never had. Her parents had an empty guest room, and they didn't treat me like a burden. They treated me like a person who needed care. The next morning, while my family was still asleep off their champagne and denial, I went back to my parents' house with Maya, grabbed whatever I could fit into trash bags, and left. I was gone before they even realized it. The next 2 years were the hardest of my life. Berkeley was expensive even with the scholarship. I worked 2 jobs, one on campus, one off, while taking a full course load. I slept in 4-hour stretches, lived on ramen and cereal, and learned to function on pure momentum. Maya's parents charged me a tiny rent and never made me feel like I owed them my dignity in exchange for a bed. They showed up to my first semester showcase. They texted me good luck before exams. They asked how I was and waited for the answer. My own parents, meanwhile, tried to contact me only in one way: control. My mom left voicemails telling me I needed to apologize to Vera for spoiling her party. My dad sent emails with subject lines like "time to come home," which I deleted without reading. Eventually, they stopped, not because they accepted me, because they could cross me off the list like an inconvenience resolved. I switched majors after my first year. I'd gone in thinking I'd do business, something safe, but I took an intro coding class to fill a requirement, and something in my brain lit up like a room where someone finally flipped the switch. Logic, systems, building things, making something work because you understood it deeply enough to shape it. I changed to computer science. For the first time, I wasn't competing for attention. I was competing with myself. My professors noticed, not in a flashy way, but in the way that matters. Feedback that was specific, respect that was earned. By junior year, I landed an internship at a small tech company in Oakland. They weren't famous, but they were sharp. They were building data tools for small businesses, software that helped people make sense of customer behavior without hiring consultants who charged more than the businesses made in a month. My role centered on the user interface, translating complicated information into something normal humans could actually use. It felt oddly healing, making complex things accessible, like I was turning chaos into clarity. That's also where I met Lena. Lena was my team lead, mid-30s, brilliant, calm, the kind of person who didn't waste words or energy on ego. She noticed how hard I worked, how I stayed late even when no one asked me to. One night she found me still at my desk, eyes burning, debugging an issue that wasn't even assigned to me. "You work like someone with something to prove," she said, not unkindly. I tried to laugh it off. "I just want to do a good job." Lena leaned against the doorway. "You don't need to prove anything to anyone except yourself." The words hit me harder than they should have, because I'd been living under a quiet belief that success would retroactively justify my leaving, that if I became impressive enough, my family would finally understand how much they'd hurt me, that accomplishments would be my evidence in a trial no one else knew was happening. Lena was right. I was still chasing approval from people who had trained themselves not to give it. Around that time, I started therapy. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie moment. It was me finally admitting I couldn't outrun my childhood by working harder. Dr. Emily Park was in her 50s, with kind eyes and an unnerving ability to see through whatever mask I wore into her office. In our first session, I spent almost an hour insisting I was fine, that I was just stressed like anyone else. She listened, then asked gently, "Tell me about your family." I gave her the sanitized version: busy parents, a sister who got more attention, normal sibling rivalry. Dr. Park nodded, then asked one question so simple it felt like a trap. When was the last time someone in your family asked how you were doing and actually waited for an honest answer? I opened my mouth to respond and realized I had nothing, not one memory. The silence in that room expanded until it felt like it could swallow me. And then I started crying. Not pretty tears, not controlled. Real sobs that made my chest hurt. I cried for the 13-year-old who waited on sidelines, for the 16-year-old who closed her laptop at the kitchen table, for the 21-year-old who stood under chandeliers while everyone cheered someone else's name. Therapy became my lifeline. Week after week, Dr. Park helped me peel back layers of things I'd accepted as normal. She taught me words like scapegoat and golden child. She explained structural favoritism the way you explain a blueprint, how a family can be built around one child's needs and another child's silence. Your parents created a dynamic where your sister was rewarded for existing, she said once, and you were punished for having needs. That causes real harm. Hearing it clinically and clearly made something shift. I stopped asking what was wrong with me. The problem had never been my worth. It was their damage. My career took off fast after graduation. The company offered me a full-time role. I threw myself into the work and it paid off. 6 months later, I got promoted, then promoted again. My salary jumped into a range I'd never imagined, and for the first time, money wasn't a constant fear. My first big purchase was a used car. Nothing fancy, just reliable. When I drove it off the lot, I sat in the parking spot with my hands on the steering wheel for 15 minutes, staring at the dashboard, marveling at how quiet my life felt when no one else had the keys. No co-signer, no parent, no strings, mine. By 23, I had moved into a small apartment near the water. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, and it was peaceful. I bought matching furniture because I could. I filled the windowsills with plants because I liked how they softened the space. I built shelves and filled them with books because reading had been my refuge when my house felt like a stage I wasn't allowed to stand on. Maya helped me host my first real dinner party. Her parents came too. They brought a card with a note that said, "We are so proud of you." I cried in my kitchen holding that card because it hit an ache I tried to pretend didn't exist. "Look at you," Maya said, spinning in my living room. "You did this despite everything." "Because of everything," I corrected softly. It was true, even though it felt ugly to admit. Their neglect taught me tenacity, taught me self-reliance, taught me how to build a life without being handed one. But I still wished I'd learned those skills another way. For a while, I stayed off social media. When I slipped, it felt like walking into a room full of old smoke. Vera's Instagram was a highlight reel. Brunches, hospital selfies, romantic weekends with her fiancé, perfect lighting that made everything look like a commercial. My mom's Facebook was a shrine to Vera's accomplishments. I trained myself not to look. Dr. Park called it protecting your peace. I started volunteering at a youth coding program, teaching teenagers basic programming, and it felt like handing someone a tool I'd built my entire life out of necessity. There was one girl, Kira, 15 and quiet, who reminded me of myself, smart, cautious, like she'd already learned not to ask for too much. "You're talented," I told her one day. "Have you thought about studying computer science in college?" She shrugged. "People like me don't get those kinds of things." My throat tightened. "People like you are exactly who should." Around that time, 2 years after my birthday disaster, Vera called me. I hadn't spoken to her directly in months. "You're seriously not coming to my wedding?" she demanded, voice sharp with disbelief. "I have a work commitment," I lied. "What could possibly be more important than your sister's wedding?" she snapped. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't make it. This is about the birthday thing, isn't it?" Her tone turned dismissive. "You're still holding a grudge after 2 years?" Something inside me, something tired, finally stood up. "You took my 21st birthday," I said, voice steady. "You made it about you and mom and dad let you. They've let you take everything from me my entire life. So no, I'm not coming to watch you have another perfect moment while I stand in the background pretending to be happy." "You're being selfish," Vera snapped. That word again. Maybe I was. Maybe wanting to be treated like a person is selfish when you're raised in a family that only values you as scenery. "At least I'm honest about it," I said, and then I hung up. My hands shook when I set my phone down, adrenaline pounding like I'd jumped off a cliff. I'd finally said what I'd needed to say for years, and it felt both freeing and terrifying. My mom called next, then my dad, then Aunt Cynthia. I let every call go to voicemail. Their messages followed a script: disappointment, guilt, accusations of ruining another milestone. Nobody asked why. Nobody wondered if I had real reasons to keep my distance. I blocked them and went back to my life. 2 months later, my company landed landed a major contract, the kind that made our tiny startup suddenly look serious. A local business journalist wrote a profile on young professionals making waves, and somehow my name ended up on the list. The interview took place in a downtown cafe. The journalist, Elise Tran, asked sharp questions. She wanted the human angle, the hardship behind the success. "What drove you?" she asked, leaning forward. I almost gave her the polished answer, but something about her sincere attention made me say the truth I usually swallowed. I wanted to prove I could build something worthwhile without the support most people take for granted, I said. I wanted to show that being underestimated doesn't define your value. The article went live on a Thursday. By Friday morning, my family had found ways through every barrier I'd built. Emails, DMs from new accounts, messages from distant relatives, and then my aunt showed up at my office lobby demanding to see me. Security called me down. She stood there in her nice coat and her practiced, concerned face like she was auditioning for worried relative. "That article made it sound like they abandoned you," she said, wounded. "Your mother is devastated." I stared at her in the lobby with people walking past, my badge hanging at my waist, my hands cold. "They did abandon me," I said. "I left at 21 and none of them tried to understand why. They were only mad I wouldn't play along." "You don't understand the pressure Vera's been under," my aunt insisted. "She's had to live up to expectations." I felt something in me rise, hot and sharp. "And I haven't," I said, louder than I meant to. Heads turned. I didn't care. Did anyone ever consider I might have had potential too? That maybe I could have been something if you'd given me half the attention you gave her? My aunt's face tightened. The security guard waited patiently, already done with the drama. "Just talk to your mother," my aunt pleaded. "She's not sleeping. This has been so hard on her." The audacity of making my mother the victim nearly cracked me in half. "It's been hard on her?" I said. "She's had years to apologize, years to ask about my life. She waited until a public article made her look bad. That's not love. That's damage control." My aunt left without answering. I went back upstairs, told my manager I needed to go home, and cried in my car for 15 minutes, stunned by the violence of my own grief. I thought I'd outrun their rejection, but their sudden scramble to rewrite history dragged every old wound into the light. On my couch at home, I read messages one by one. Congratulations from co-workers, networking attempts, notes from old teachers, and then unexpectedly a short message from Vera's fiancé, Evan. Saw the article. "I'm sorry. You deserved better." 8 words. Simple. Honest. It made me suspicious. It also made me sad, because even he could see it now. That evening, an unknown number called. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Nora," Vera's voice said. It sounded smaller, tired. "Can we talk? Like, really talk?" Every instinct screamed, "No. Protect your peace. Protect your boundaries." But some naive piece of me still wanted a sister. "Fine," I said, "but I choose the location, and you come alone." We met at a park near the bay, neutral ground. No home advantage, no stage. Vera looked exhausted. Makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. She'd lost weight. Her engagement ring flashed when she twisted it on her finger like she was trying to escape it. "I read the article," she said, no preface. "Is that really how you see us? Like we ruined your life?" "You didn't ruin my life," I said. "You just made it harder than it needed to be." Vera swallowed. "I never intended—" She paused, then shook her head. "Okay, that's not true. I did mean to take your birthday party." I stared at her. "Why?" I asked honestly. "Why would you do that?" Vera laughed once, bitter. "Because I was jealous." My brain almost rejected the word. "Jealous of what?" I asked. "Of me?" Vera's eyes filled. "You had freedom. You could mess up and nobody cared because nobody expected anything from you. Meanwhile, I had to be perfect every second. Perfect grades, perfect job track, perfect relationship. The pressure never stops." She rubbed her forehead like it hurt. "When I turned 21, Dad was sick, Mom was stressed, my birthday got swallowed. I pretended it didn't matter, but it did. So when Mom suggested combining yours, I grabbed it because I wanted one moment where everyone looked at me and told me I was enough." My throat burned. "So you dealt with your pressure by making sure I had no support at all," I said quietly. Vera nodded, tears spilling now. "I'm sorry. I should have said it 2 years ago. I was too proud. I'm sorry for taking your birthday. I'm sorry for never standing up for you. I'm sorry for all of it." I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, me cold and triumphant, Vera begging, me unmoved, but hearing real guilt in her voice cracked something in me. "I appreciate you saying it," I said, "but an apology doesn't undo years." "I know," Vera whispered. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I needed needed you to know I see it now, and I hate myself for it. We sat in silence while joggers passed and dogs chased tennis balls. The world moved like our family drama was nothing, which in the grand scheme, it probably was. Are you really not coming to the wedding? Vera asked eventually. I can't, I said. Being around mom and dad, pretending everything's fine, watching them celebrate you again while I'm supposed to smile, it would undo everything I've built. Vera stood, brushing grass off her jeans. What if I didn't let it be like that? I frowned. What do you mean? She looked down at me, eyes steady in a way I'd never seen before. What if I told them they have to acknowledge what they did before I move forward with anything? Before you even consider showing up? They'll never do that, I said. They don't think they did anything wrong. Vera's jaw tightened. Then maybe it's time someone makes them see it. She walked away before I could ask more. 3 days later, my mom left a voicemail asking if we could meet for lunch. Her voice was unsure. My dad emailed with a subject line that read, I owe you an apology, and the email was longer than anything he'd ever written me in my life. I didn't respond. I needed time to understand what was happening. Whatever Vera did, it cracked something in them, but I wasn't sure I had the stamina for the fallout. Then Vera emailed me a video, shaky phone footage, my parents' dining room, the table set for a family meal, my mom and dad sitting stiff, Vera and Evan across from them. Vera's voice came through the phone speaker. I need to say something, and you're going to listen to all of it before anyone interrupts. The video ran for almost 20 minutes. Vera dismantled every excuse my parents had used for years. She listed specifics, birthdays overshadowed, achievements minimized, moments I'd forgotten because forgetting was how I survived. She called out how they trained me to feel selfish for having needs. My mom tried to cut in more than once and Vera snapped, I'm not finished. My dad sat there with a face that looked red and stunned and strangely ashamed. At the end, Vera's voice broke. You broke her, she said, pointing toward the camera like it was me. You damaged your own daughter because you were too lazy to love both of us equally. When she tried to tell you, you called her dramatic. You owe her more than apologies. You owe her years of healing and the childhood she should have had. The video ended with my mom sobbing, my dad silent, and Evan reaching out to touch Vera's shoulder before the screen went black. I watched it 3 times. Anger that my pain only became real when Vera said it. Gratitude that she finally used her golden child status for something good. Grief for what we could have been if she'd found courage sooner. My phone rang. Vera, did you watch it? She asked. Yeah, I said, my voice distant to my own ears. I know it doesn't fix anything, she said quickly, but I meant what I said at the park. I'm done enabling them. What happened after you stopped recording? Vera exhaled. Mom tried to justify it. Dad admitted they made mistakes, but kept downplaying. I told them if they can't actually face what they did, I'm limiting contact too. She paused. And I cancelled the big wedding. I sat upright. What? We're doing City Hall, she said. Small. No performance, no pretending. Her voice softened. I don't want to be that person anymore.